Γι' αυτό τον παντρεύτηκα. Μου θύμιζε τον σημαντικό μου γονιό, τη μάνα μου. Είναι ταυτόσιμο, μισιόνται βαθιά γιατί είναι οι ίδιοι. Και εγώ στη μέση. Όχι, εγώ θα κερδίσω, όχι αυτή. Good evening from the studio in Athens. Thank God we are at the end of this conference, this two-day conference, and have the great joy to conclude officially this forum with a discussion with my dear friend and great supporter of our chamber, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Christos Staikouras. Welcome, Minister. Thank you for the invitation and the kind words, and I will remain close to you, not only to you personally, but collectively, because you do an excellent job for the country. I would like to pay you back this compliment. For the excellent performances of Greek economy. Listen, I could depict a first comment on what you are to see over the next days on the budget, to give you a sign on where economy lies currently. The truth is that the country, society and economy has done well. Economy will register a very high recovery in 2021, around 7%, far higher than expected and the original estimates we had done. More important is the point that all international institutions converge toward that estimate, and the European Commission was the last to say that this was an request for your chamber. The European Commission states that the composition of the wealth is steadily improving from 2021. That is, investment grows far more than consumption expenses, so therefore it becomes sustainable. I'll try to share a couple of figures, not many, but on many occasions those indices corroborate reality. According to the European Commission, not the Ministry of Finance, our ministry, investments in 2021 in Greece will be higher than any other EU countries. And exports from Greece, I know your great interest due to your origin from the northern Greece, will be around 8% in 2023, when the EU average will be zero. Therefore, higher wealth, better composition of that wealth, lower unemployment, which will be going down, sliding down, implementation of structural changes, dealing with bad debts, enhancement cash flow in real economy, therefore enhancement of competitiveness. I believe therefore that 2021 we attained all that. We attained all those goals we had set. This, however, does not mean that there are no risks and challenges that have to be faced, such as the current combination. That's why this snapshot is extremely important. The pandemic, the health crisis, and the energy crisis. This is a very negative snapshot. You covered two of the questions that I had already prepared with your answer. Let me ask you, therefore, something else. Since we consider that the growth rate will reach 7 or 8%, and therefore we will have an additional fiscal space created, will this space be extinct with measures offsetting revenues in order to fight the rise of prices? Or will we be expecting the substantial boosting of lower income classes? Well, I can be clear here, and this is a very good opportunity, that the higher growth rates do not coincide with broadening the fiscal space. It is obviously a very substantial element, but this is not the unique element for broadening fiscal space. One should double-check the sources for this rise of wealth and the sustainability of this growth, so as to deduce whether such a fiscal space is created for a couple of months or a permanent fiscal space for permanent policies. We have proven that we move on two axes simultaneously. One axis, as it was our pre-electoral campaign stating, is the improvement of the fiscal image of the country with a simultaneous reduction of tax and social security contributions. This we did, we do, and we will go on doing. The last 2 years, however, we were faced with a series of consecutive external and unprecedented crises, which means that Greek state should create a safety net for companies and households. We did that sufficiently with 42.7 billion euros during the 2 years of 2022, so as to keep both the economy and society standing. And the figures I gave you in the previous question actually corroborate the correctness and rationality of the financial policy we apply. Of course, I haven't addressed the center of your question. So, as I told you, we are on two axes. Therefore, if some kind of fiscal space is produced, which will derive from a better execution of the budget, and if needs are proven through the current crisis, that is energy crisis and health crisis, the Greek state has proven that can find the resources and has the reflexes so as to act timely towards those sectors and social classes that are in greater need. If a more permanent fiscal space arises, this will be directed to even higher reductions of taxes and social contributions, and the implementation of a rational fiscal policy, enhancing queries of the country, such as the great quest, which are education and health, public health. Thank you. We will come back with another question concerning entrepreneurship, but we currently are, as you know, in the taxation, the tax forum of the conference. So allow me to raise a specific question on the real estate tax. The changes in this in SRET, the single real estate tax that is, was difficult to attain, and it took 12 months to have a slight change. What are the changes that are registered? And this complementary tax involved will be introduced in the main scale or something additional? Well, you said we are in a tax forum, so it's an opportunity to remind you where we used to be and where we are in our tax policy before addressing the gist of your question, which is a branch of this. We had committed ourselves before the elections that we would have a conscious and conscientious fiscal policy with well-targeted reductions of tax and social security contributions. I think we were quite successful in that, despite the fact that over the last 2 years we had to increase public expenditure so as to support households and companies, and we did very well. We never missed the goal. We reduced SRET by 21% in average. We reduced corporate tax from 29% to 22%. We reduced the down payment of tax from 100 to 80% for legal entities, and for physical persons at 55%. We reduced taxation on dividends to 5%. We reduced the tax rate from 22 to 9% as the lowest one. We abolished the solidarity contribution for 21 to 22 for private sector income, and we reduced by 4 percentile units the social contributions. This is what we could do anymore, because we had to support the public health as well. There was excessive expenditure due to the pandemic. We had to enhance entrepreneurship through refunded down payments, through the zeroing of rents and so forth. This is what we do in financial policy, but this is not only that. We also offered taxation incentives so as to attract taxpayers' residents in Greece. I believe that I'm amongst compatriots who can really agree that the package we offered over the last 1.5 years has already started bearing fruit, and we have visible, very successful results. Some 70 investments were attracted to Greece. Some 250 pensioners have made demand to put their tax residence in Greece, and more than 1,000 young people Many of them Greeks that fled from the brain drain, they came back to Greece exploiting those initiatives. At the same time, we put incentives so as to enhance e-transactions and fight tax evasion. This is what we do in the financial aspect. Did we achieve whatever we said in the pre-electoral campaign? No, we did not, because a pending issue is the single real estate tax. We have to reduce by 8% this law over the next 4 years. But perhaps independently to that, there is in parallel another exercise. Indeed, I corroborate here that this was not an easy exercise, because we should first of all find the new objective so-called values from realtors that would have to visit all over Greece within the pandemic. We are currently at a stage where the objective presumed values are integrated in the real estate, in the property taxation, and we must introduce those tax rates so as for the overall SRET not to be higher than that of the previous years. Following that, we should examine which fiscal space is needed so as to observe what the Prime Minister had said in the Thessaloniki International Fair. Most households should have even lower SRET to pay within 2022. Thank you, Minister. Well, deeds speak for themselves far louder than talk. And what I can really assure myself as well, that with what you have already done, you have made our country far more attractive to foreign investors. We also see that on a daily basis from the interest shown, an ever-soaring interest for foreign direct investment in our country, especially from the USA. And you have seen that. You've seen already investments in digital hubs as the one of Microsoft, or investments such as that of Pfizer in Thessaloniki, of Cisco, Deloitte. Amazon is also shown interest, Tesla, Blink, and so forth. Well, these are very characteristic indicative examples of the very strong interest for foreign direct investment in Greece. I can assure you there's the same interest in many other sectors, with many other forms of investments in Greece, even in Greek bonds, I might say, state bonds. But the critical point, and this is also the responsibility of the political leadership in the Ministry of Finance, for all those success to be the springboard for new goal setting. So in order not to try to run ahead your future questions, I would like to share with you the plan of the country in a couple of minutes, moving ahead. Going fast forward, because I'm certain that both you, as chair of the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce, and your members, the first thing that they actually want from the Ministry of Finance to have a specific plan and know precisely how they will lead the ship to that goal. So let me share 6 proposals. First one, high growth. High growth from 2021 onwards. Absolutely feasible. We see that. Figures corroborate that. Second goal, improving the quality of wealth, where from 2021, I shared with you the estimates of the European Commission for 21-22. This goal equally feasible. Third goal, leaving the regime of monitoring from 2022. We already discussed this perspective in the European fora. Fourth goal, we are a bank-based country, so we must reduce bad loans in a single-digit number in 2022. Already 1 or perhaps 2 systemic banks will attain to have a single-digit ratio. Fifth goal, systemic readaptation in 2022. The primary deficit will reduce by 7% to something higher than 1% in 2022. Therefore, important fiscal adjustment due to the recovery and development of the economy, and not due to austerity measures, quite the contrary. And sixth, attaining feasible primary surpluses. And sixth goal, which of course has as a prerequisite the success in the 5 previous ones, attaining higher ranking by the houses by 2022. This is our goal setting for the next 2 years, and we are committed towards that on a specific plan, and all our policies hang under specific priorities to pursue supporting households and companies as long as crises insist. I speak in plural number because we've seen recently what we have gone through. To have a very wise fiscal policy towards the reduction of taxes and social contributions, social security contributions, secure cash deposits so as to be ready to address multiple crises, privatization processes at a speedier pace. I would like you and your members to really study last year's document that was aired yesterday, and which is the result of the session of KISIP on privatizations in 2022. Many members can find excellent elements of real estate and property where they can invest. And of course, there's great interest already from the USA for existing real estate elements which are in the plan, such as the port of Alexandroupolis, for instance. And last but not least, a very strong voice of Greece abroad, as it is the case over the last 2 years, so as by the end of 2022 to have realistic fiscal goals and a fiscal regime for Europe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for sharing all these thoughts with us. There is no doubt that we'll do our best in order to convey this information to our members, both in Greece and abroad. Allow me to say that important role in repositioning our country on the global map is this planning and the implementation of this planning, which I believe is something that you have remained loyal to throughout your tenure. I shared with you only the objectives and the axes. The policies are a different thing, and I could spend hours talking about them. This would allow me to explain to you how policies can serve the achievement of objectives. When I talked about wise fiscal policy, I said that because I believe that all policies, including fiscal policy, are related to the reduction of tax rates. In Greece, we have the implementation of law for the settlement of debt. We have Hercules II that will lead to a further reduction of non-performing loans in the banks. So only these policies actually prove that everything is in the service of specific objectives and specific priorities. I would like to ask you a question about financing, but you answered it indirectly. So allow me to ask you a different question. Do you believe that it is feasible to reach the objective for the financing of 100,000 businesses in 1 year's time? And if yes, under which safeguards when it comes to the criteria and the monitoring of the progress and the result of the financing? And I'm asking you this question since it relates to the previous questions I posed. I would like to thank you for this question because you talked about an amount that pertains to the real economy, and it is related to how we can support the growth of real economy. As I have said in the parliament, 700,000 businesses cannot cross the doors of the banks. So here comes the private sector that has set as a figure the 100,000 businesses, and this is a feasible objective if we take into account that the base of these bankable companies. But the point is that there were 34,000 businesses that got the loans that they needed, 28,000 of which were small and very small enterprises. So if this is a benchmark, then the 100,000 number is absolutely feasible in 1 year's time. The point is that we all need to be in the same direction. What does the Greek state have to do? It needs to continue implementing Hercules in order to reduce the number of NPLs in the portfolios of banks. If there is further room for financing, then in cooperation with the banking system, we need to complete the agreements for the initiation of getting the 12.7 billion of loans coming from RRF, which will, as you understand, finance many businesses. We need to proceed with the law for the settlement of debt. This will be very beneficial for the society, and it will allow the citizen to become bankable once again. And it is the role of services that is of utmost importance, the role of services and the role of bankers. So if the settlement is done, then the citizen will have to go back to the banking system in order to get a loan. So I mentioned some of the obligations of the state that are absolutely necessary in order to improve the entrepreneurship. I'm leaving aside the fiscal policy and other priorities. Now, which is the responsibility of the businesses? Their responsibility is, through the collective associations they have, to support businesses to become bankable. In other words, to allow them to get these characteristics that will make them eligible from the banking system for financing. For example, jointly, state and real economy will end up in a bill of law that will allow bigger businesses to be established, will allow mergers and cooperations. Why? This is important because a bigger size of a business will allow some others to become bankable. And this is the role of the chambers. Now, what is the role of the banks and of the services? These businesses that have already been in the process of settling the debts are the first party. The second is the banks that need to pay greater attention to the files of the businesses. Indeed, there are many businesses that do not have healthy financial data on the basis of the last 5 years. But if one is more careful, they will see that these businesses have features of sustainability, so they shouldn't be rejected by the banks without second thought. On the contrary, banks should check their files in greater detail and see whether they can become bankable. So we're talking about a shared responsibility. If we assume all our responsibility, we will reach our objective in 1 year's time. Very interesting. And I also believe that if your objectives are met, we will get some excellent results, both as country and as economy. Mr. Minister, I would like us to close this discussion with a wish that you could make for our economy in the near future. What would be the ideal scenario in your view? What would you like to see happening next year, for example, when we will meet again in the context of the 18th Tax Forum? I hope that the country will be faced with fewer external crises, and moreover, given that the healthcare crisis has disrupted our daily life and our economy, we need to develop a holistic approach in 2022. So I believe that the country, given the effort that it has made, and I'm talking about the effort made by the state, the citizens, the businesses, This effort has proven that the country as a whole can make it, and even better than other countries. We are the model that many other countries could follow. Since we have effectively managed the healthcare crisis, we have developed a network of support for households and businesses, and we never stopped implementing structural reforms in order to create the necessary conditions for high and sustainable growth, for creation of many quality jobs. And here comes, of course, the minimum wage, which, as you know, will be increased, and there will be a second initiative by the government in 2022, always in the context of the economy and entrepreneurship, in order to further support social cohesion. I believe that everything that the country has achieved in the midst of pandemic, but also in the midst of other crises, there will be a level playing field that will allow the takeoff of the economy. Thank you very much for being with us. I thank you for inviting me and for the excellent dialogue that we had. I'm always at your disposal. Thank you very much. I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the 17th Tax Forum organized by the Hellenic American Chamber of Commerce. From Athens and from Salonika, we shared with you some important insights about taxation and economy. We would like to thank all of you for being with us during these 2 days. I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart all the people of the chamber, especially Katerina Tsagaroulaki and Angela Boyadji, and especially all the people working in the Athens and Salonika offices, and of course all of you who were with us. Thank you very much. And we renew our appointment in GES, which is the conference organized by Chamber and which will be held on the 6th, 7th, and 8th of December. We will be happy to have you with us, Mr. Minister. I accept your invitation. If I'm not mistaken, I will be able to make it. Thank you very much.